Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, working with the federal government, other agencies, tribal governments, have been working on recovering the bear for, as I said, 20 to 30 years. And the goal of the ESA is to recover threatened and endangered species, and with adequate monitoring and safeguards in place, turn over management to the states. And those goals have been achieved. All recovery criteria have been met. The bear is recovered, and the assurances are in place. So we feel really strongly it's time. And there'll be 60 to 90-day comment period on the rule, and then the Fish and Wildlife Service will make a final decision. But it's interesting, Peter. The bear was declared recovered in 2007, and then there were some issues with old whitebark pine and some other things where the food source might not have been adequate. Necessarily regulatory regulations in place, and those have all been addressed. And so we're hopeful that because the bear is healthy, and this is just for the Greater Yellowstone Ecosystem, we're going to manage very conservatively, assuming we get that opportunity. And we applaud the Fish and Wildlife Service and thank everybody that helped get us to this point.
Now, Ron, will this mean that there will be limited hunting available for grizzly bear, or are they still off limits for hunters?
Well, first of all, the rule would have to be, the bear would have to be delisted, Peter, and it's a long process after that, or it's an important process. Any decisions on whether the bear would be hunted would be made by the Fish and Wildlife Commission here for Montana anyway, and that would be, as other hunting opportunities are, vetted through the public process, and there'd be public meetings, there would be commission meetings, and a final decision would be made by the Fish and Wildlife Commission. But one of the things we want to assure people, we're going to be conservative. We want the bear to remain recovered. There are other factors than hunting that will result potentially in some bears that die. So we're going to be prudent and thoughtful, and the public will be involved in any decisions. But one of the things that we hear from a lot of people is that, well, once they're delisted, the states will just start indiscriminately overhunting bears, and that nothing could be further from the truth. We're going to be very careful. We'll continue to monitor. There are certain population levels that when we reach those, you can do certain things. When you go below those, you have to do other things. So a lot of safeguards in place, and a long way to go until we see if the states do actually get the opportunity to manage.
Okay. Now, how many bears are there in the Greater Yellowstone Ecosystem that brought about this delisting? I know it's not just a matter of numbers, but what are the numbers?
Well, Peter, again, it's not an exact science, but we've got very good information that indicates there are over 700 bears in the ecosystem. And that's been an increase from, there were about 30 bears at one time, so there's been a substantial increase. The total bear population estimate, if you want the specific number right now is 747 bears, but obviously you don't count every one, but that's the estimate.